score to beat is now 9.30. The way this U.S. Challenge works, you must compete in the all-around. After 6 rotations, the gymnast with the highest cumulative score, that means all 6 apparatus figured into the total, will be the one who survives to compete in the next round of competition.
Jorge is originally from Puerto Rico, but he lives in Houston, and he did a nice mount there. It's a half in, 1 and 3 in the tuck position to a rollout, and then of course he comes back across the diagonal with a 1.5 twist punch front. And look at the flares there. Tremendous speed, great elevation above the floor. Up to pirouettes, to a handstand, and down to splits. That was an excellent combination. So far, that's the best part of his exercise.
At first, I was a little concerned going into the flares. I thought, uh-oh, he didn't get all the way down to the splits, but it was a setup for those flares.
Oh, he can't walk in that handstand. Although it is no longer a requirement, you don't need to show a press to a handstand. If you make bobbles like that in some basic elements, the judges are certainly going to downgrade the exercise because you can't give away points on the easy things. You have to hit those right because the difficult tumbling passes are where the chances of making mistakes are a little stronger. And a full punch front, not a really strong dismount. He needs a little more difficulty in his floor, but he's still very young. He's on the senior development team for the U.S. program, so he'll develop into being a little bit more of a powerful tumbler as the years go on.
He is just 18 years of age as we take another look at his performance.
Round off back handspring, little sloppy, but that's a half in, 1 and 3. You can see he rolls out, stands up with a half turn, and then he comes back across the diagonal. There's no question that this is a great part of his exercise. The tumbling wasn't really powerful, but this stuff is great, and this is world-class stuff. Flares with tremendous elevation, really good speed, and he cranks them right up to a pirouette handstands. Here's where he got in trouble, though. This is important to hold this right here. Straddle press to a handstand. You can't give away the easy points as he did there. I did that a lot when I was a young gymnast as well, though, so he'll improve a great deal.
So there's hope, Jorge, because Bart outgrew it. You see his score, 9.15. Right now, Kyle Asano has the lead over Jorge, 9.3 to 9.15. We'll be back. A little bit of a deficit going into the second rotation. And now you are looking at Jorge Garcia. He is getting ready to compete on the pommel horse. Again, he is up against Kyle Asano.
This young man is really committed to the sport of gymnastics. He says for his hobbies, he likes to watch gymnastics videos. We saw him do great flares on the floor. You can see he can also do very good flares on the horse as well. Did flares up to a handstand. He's working without the pommels. Whoa!
Form breaks, have a seat.
Oh, he was doing a really difficult combination of skills there without the pommels, which is so much more difficult to work on the body of the horse because the elevation of the pommels are a little bit easier. When you put your hands down on the leather, it's very difficult, and he got into some trouble. Now, of course, the judges will take off a half a point for falling off the exercise, and then he is obligated to pick up where he left off and continue the exercise. Does flares to a handstand on the end. He breaks into this scissors, one of the requirements. Flares again to a handstand and a helicopter pirouette off. That's a nice dismount.
That's very pretty. Too bad he had that major break in the middle.
Watch what happens here. See, he's working without the pommels. And those pommels are about 4.5 inches up, so you have to have really good elevation above the horse. And once you start to lose it in the shoulders and you get low to the horse, you're in trouble. This was a good part of the exercise, though. He does flares right to a handstand as he pirouettes all the way down to the end and continues to pirouette off. That's a beautiful dismount.
Jorge Garcia. Already he was down 0.15 to Kyle Asano. The score for this apparatus, 8.35. Tough break for Jorge Garcia. Pitch 0.3. 3/10 of a point over Kyle Asano, and could really distance himself here if he does a fine job.
There's a pull to a front lever. Keeps his body horizontal, kip to a cross. Presses to a handstand. He is a little weak, but he is significantly stronger than Asano. He's having trouble with the handstands, but where do you see this guy swing?
Nice.
There's that double whippet or Yamawaki. He's having a little trouble controlling the rings, but he told us earlier he was planning to cut a triple back off the rings today. Let's see if he goes for it. No, he doesn't. He's going to do a really nice, clean layout double back and go with consistency. As we mentioned earlier in the show, consistency really is going to be a key to advancing to the further rounds.
That is so important. I think he was right in forgetting the triple back.
That pike position Yamawaki or double whippet, kind of a crazy sounding name, but really interesting looking move. Here he just bails away, really high, clean layout double, and an excellent landing.
He stuck it.
Maybe he'll save the triple for a later round if he advances on.
And he should outscore Kyle Asano. Again, the score for Asano is 8.65. There you see the number for Jorge Garcia, 9.55. So he is widening the gap between himself and Kyle Asano. Right now, Jorge Garcia looks like he's headed to the next round. Right now, we are headed to gymnast. Right now, 8.95 for Carol Ulrich on the balance beam. Now we are ready to move back to the men's competition. You are looking at Jorge Garcia. He is ready to vault. Again, the men only vault once.
Yeah, men's vaulting, it's one shot, you gotta do it. Here we go. Handspring, pike front. Oh, he was in really good position. He had good height, good distance. I think he just misjudged the landing. Jorge
Garcia currently is on top.
This is important to notice here. This is a blind landing. You don't see the floor until right when your feet just about make contact. It's a very difficult vault to really spot the landing on. When you're flipping backward, you can see the landing much earlier, but you'll notice he doesn't see the landing. Let's spot it. He goes over twice right there. As his feet pass in front of him, he won't even see the landing until they're just about on the ground.
The score is being posted for Jorge Garcia, 8.7.
Jorge Garcia receives an 8.70. Now remember, the edge that he has over Kyle Asano is 1.
Garcia's going to mount on the end as well. There's a glide. Swing to a handstand. All right. It's a nice element. See, he's really doing a lot of underbar work. As I mentioned, the judges are encouraging this as he shows some really interesting work on a giant, reverse hecht, giant. Now he's having trouble with some of the easier elements, as we saw him have problems earlier. He can do a lot of big tricks. He's done 5 now major underswinging elements, which is a nice, unique way of approaching the parallel bars, although it was a really one-sided routine because all of his difficulty came from one style of skill, all underbar giant swing elements. He needs to show a more well-rounded exercise. Here, I guess you can see why he had trouble. He did a reverse stutz to a straddle cut. He was having trouble there. So what does he do? He kicks right back into his forte, which is the giant swing elements. You can see here, he does a giant down to a front uprise to the end, swing back, and a giant to a tuck double back. So it was a really interesting idea. I think he needs to show a more well-rounded exercise.
I believe the judges agreed with you. Now this is going to make the scoring very interesting because Jorge Garcia received an 8.15 for that routine. Remember, Kyle Asano received a 9.20 and was trailing by 6th and final event with a 0.3 deficit. So Jorge Garcia has got to hit on the high bar if he's to defeat Kyle Asano.
He said yesterday when we were talking to him that the high bar is his favorite event. He's more confident there, and it's very exciting for him. So he's going to need a good performance here today. Pirouette over the top. One-arm giant swing to a release move. Good work. Oh, a little trouble on the kip cast. He's a little sloppy. You can see he has good swing elements, but he doesn't quite yet have the polish. He'll get that as he gets a little older and a little more confident in competition. Triple back. Good dismount.
Well, he's dropped the gauntlet for Kyle Asano. Again, he trails by 0.3.
This release move is really interesting because he does a one-arm turns backward and then does a front with a full and makes a good regrasp without breaking form, and that's a very complicated move out of a one-arm giant swing. Good speed here for the dismount. Really, he makes this very easily. Look at him crank those knees apart. That really increases your rotation. Let's look one more time. You can see he's good and high. He's really pulling. No problem on the triple back. He's going to be a fine young gymnast because he can do a lot of big tricks. When he polishes up his exercises a little bit, he's going to go places.
The number he received is 9.10. Kyle Lasano, who has a